This is possibly one of the most defensive ride lines that we have currently within Cardfight Vanguard Willdress. It got so defensive to the point where she's practically covering her face with a bag, and people have been calling her iPad face for some reason, which is quite accurate, to be honest. This video is sponsored by Phoenix Pharos cards. If you need supplies of singles or splits for Cardfight Vanguard, especially the ones in the video, do check out Phoenix Pharos cards today, and as a bonus, use the promo code MetaNerd to get an amazing 5% discount. And with that being said, let's get on with the video. Greetings YouTube, welcome back to the MetaNerd channel. I am Marcus, bringing you another video for Cardfight Vanguard Willdress. In this video, we'll be going through the new Rideline that was introduced for the Lyrical Monasterio set, which is Gorgon Eyes Siana. We're only like a couple videos away from wrapping up the whole Lyrical Monasterio's booster set, and hopefully I will want to wrap this up really quickly as we are approaching the two stride deck set, which is Siana and Lepoix, and those are going to possibly shift the meta in not a very good way. Without further ado, let's take a look at what Siana brings to the table in terms of her gaze as well as the paper bag on top of her head. First and foremost is the great one, rely on the snakes when unsure Siana. Auto Vanguard Circle. At the end of the battle, this unit was attacked by a rear guard. If a card was not put on Guardian Circle for this battle, your opponents choose a card from their hand and they may discard it. If they did not discard a card, bind the rear guard that attack. Second skill auto, when this unit is rolled upon by a grade 2 card with Siana in its card name, cost Soul Blast 1, draw a card and return all of your opponent's front row rear guards to hand. So the first skill is basically like a defensive skill where all of the Siana version, be it the grade 1, the grade 2 and grade 3, do have the skill. It basically shuts off as well as discourage opponent from rushing down Siana, because the opponent is either forced to discard one or just bind away their rear guards, which is quite bad, I would say, if the opponent chooses to rush, of course. But depending on what the matchup is, some of the ride lines that we currently have does not really care if their rear guards get retired. The best example would be Stoicheia, because all of their stuff are basically just tokens, so they don't really care about their token anyway. You can just bind the tokens, it's just gonna come back the next turn, so pretty much dependable on the matchup. It's not like the most anti-rush strategy that we have, but it is actually not too bad in terms of, you know, shutting off any aggressive opponent that wants to rush you down since turn 1. Really very nice. The second skill is only great for the draw, I think, because the front row return to the opponent's hand can sometimes be a nuisance, because we do have Rideline that basically superior calls the top deck, and if they superior call like a PG or something, then you're basically forced to return that card to the opponent's hand, because this card says return all of your opponent's front row rear guard, so you don't really get to choose which rear guard. If the opponent catches on that, yeah, it can sometimes be a nuisance, I would say. Also, one thing to keep in mind is that for Gandiva players that is going up against Siana, since the binding of the rear guards is basically bind face up, since it does not really says face down, so by default whatever that is bind from the first skill is binding face up. So Gandiva players will not be able to take advantage of this skill because most of their power up are coming from face down cards. So it's just an interesting fact to keep in mind. At least this Rideline isn't going to automatically die to Gandiva. Next up, we have the grade 2. Countermeasure against the heat is perfect Siana. The first skill is basically the same defensive skill as the grade 1. Like, all 3 of the Siana cards do have the skill, so I'm not gonna go through them like every time, so we're just gonna skip to the second skill. Auto, when this unit is rolled upon by a grade 3 card with Siana in its card name, choose a trigger unit or blitz order from your drop and put it into your hand. So we have the similar anti-rush skill. This whole deck is basically preventing the opponent from even calling out rear guards to just attack into Siana, because they will need to either discard a card from their hand or they are forced to bind the rear guard, if of course Siana choose not to guard, that is. The second skill here does allows to either recycle or discard it to ride cost. You can just choose to discard a trigger unit in order to ride into the grade 3, and then you can just recycle back that trigger unit. Or in this case, an extra bonus here is that you are able to kind of recycle blitz orders from the drop, which is quite nice in terms of your defensive turn. The best blitz order I think for now is of course going to be the generic blitz order that each and every nation has, which is this card here. It's basically a 15k shield in a sense, and if the opponent's Vanguard is placed by an effect this turn, it becomes a 30k shield. It's not a bad blitz order. I mean, there are other blitz order that you could run within the deck, but this is just one example. It basically opens up the option for you to consider running blitz order because you can just recycle them back to hand. I mean, it's only once per game, but still, it is a really nice skill to have. But I think recycling the trigger unit will be more useful because of Siana's skill to utilize the trigger unit into the soul, because of how Siana plays in terms of the grade 3 as well as some other skills that we have further down the video. So this is just the grade 2. It's not bad, but it's not the most game-breaking one, but it is kind of helping Siana in a way. Next up, we have Gorgon Ice Siana. Continuous Vanguard Circle. If the total number of your units on your opponent's front row rearguard circle and guardian circle is 2 or less, this unit gets critical +1 and drive +1. Second skill, Auto Vanguard Circle. When this unit attack, put a trigger unit from your hand into soul, and this unit gets 15k power until the end of that battle. And the third skill is basically the defensive skill that all Siana will get. So as it was being established since the grade 1 Siana we talked about earlier, this whole deck seems to be like a very passive playstyle where it just depends on if the opponent wants to rush you or not, and it's just basically preventing the opponent from rushing you, as well as just keep on returning the front row rearguards to the opponent's hand and therefore deny any intercept. While at the same time of doing that, she herself does gain a critical +1 and a drive, which is going to be very threatening. It's basically just depends on the opponents to unlock some skills. Based on the first skill, it's basically just like extra Batadore effect on Siana, just to force the opponent to throw more hands down in order to prevent the critical +1 as well as drive +1. Because think about it, this whole deck will be revolving around returning the opponent's front row rearguards back to hand. Because the whole playstyle revolves around returning the opponent's front row rearguards back to hand, it means that the part where it actually checks is if the total number of units on the opponent's guardian circle is 2 or less, which means that the opponent needs to throw down 3 cards in total on the guardian circle, considering the front row does not have any rearguards at all, in order to even provide the critical +1 and drive +1. So it doesn't really matter how big Siana is, the opponent has to choose whether or not they want to give Siana the critical +1 as well as drive +1, and therefore forced out even more hand. And since you do return all of the front row, it means that it is solely based on whatever is in their hand to guard Siana's attack. It's kind of a guard restrict in a sense when you think about it. The second skill is a very nice defensive skill, especially against guard restrict matchup, because when she is being attacked, if there is a guard restrict, you can just like put one trigger unit from the hand into the soul and she instantly gains a 15k power. It technically bypasses guard restrict, but if the 15k isn't enough to successfully guard the guard restrict attack, you will still need to throw down your hand, because this card is only being triggered once, since the number of units that is attacking into Siana is only once. So do be very careful. You can't really spam all 3 triggers into the hand for one attack. That's not how this works. At least that's what I think. You could potentially change a 5k to 10k shield depending if you're running the normal draws or the effect draws into a 15k shield, and it's very nice in terms of gaining more shield value out of like lesser shield values. It's a little bit sad that you cannot put normal unit, but it's just a matter of balancing out how the skill works. And once more, this is not once per turn, but it is actually restricted to only once per unit attack. Do be very careful in terms of how you activate this card skill. And of course, the third skill is the anti-rush skill. It will force the opponent to kind of play around this skill. If the opponent doesn't have anything that interacts with the bind zone, they will need to kind of play around this skill. It's not going to be a very straightforward matchup, but it's not entirely game-breaking or just a one-sided win, I would say. So the whole gameplay here, I think, is to stall out the opponent by, you know, constantly bind the opponent's front row rearguards. And by the way, the binding of the rearguards, that attack is bypasses whatever resist skill that we currently have in Cardfight Vanguard. So decks like Bastions that relies on rearguard attacks and also provides the grade 3 rearguards in the front row with resist is still gonna get bind from this skill. So you do need to be very careful, especially going up against this deck. Unless you're the deck that doesn't really care about your rearguards and you can just bind them away, sure, go ahead. But then for this boss unit, the whole game plan is just to stall out the opponent, slowly but surely wither out their resources, as well as just constantly bind their attackers to the point where they can't really make an impactful turn, and then you just sort of just kill them after that. So now that we know what the whole Siana Rideline works, let's take a look at what are the support cards revolving around this Rideline does in order to help out Siana to take the win. First off, we have this place is like a Utopia Noortje. Auto rearguard circle. When this unit attack a Vanguard, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Siana in his card name, cost Soul Blast 1, return all of your opponent's front row rearguards to hand, and this unit gets 5k power until the end of that battle. So this basically just helps to unlock like Siana's critical and drive skill, because the moment you activate her skill, you just return whatever cards in the opponent's front row to hand, which could technically unlock Siana's critical and drive. Since there is no cards in the Guardian Circle as well as the front row, she's just gonna get a +1 crit and drive until the opponent starts to throw down cards into the Guardian Circle. Then yeah, not too shabby. And considering that you do need to Soul Blast 1, it's also okay, since for every single attack the opponent does to Siana, she is able to put like a trigger unit into the soul to even guard that attack, which is very, very nice. By returning the front row rearguards to the opponent's hand, it basically denies any intercept skill if there is any, which just forced out the opponent to guard solely from the hand, which is very, very good. And once more, since this is returning cards to the hand, it can be a good thing and a bad thing, depends on what card that is being returned to the hand. It might just possibly save the opponent from losing that turn. Depends on how the game goes. It could be bad, it could be good. It's just very situational at this point. But of course, in terms of the Siana deck, you want to return the opponent's front row rearguards as much as possible, just to force out more cards from the opponent's hand. Very nice support card. Next, we have Wonderful One Lepoix. Although when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, choose one of your opponent's front row rearguards and you may return it to the hand. Second skill, auto rearguard circle. When your grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Siana in its card name attack or is attacked, put this unit into your soul, choose one of your Vanguard and it gets 10k power until the end of that battle. So this card has the same return to hand skill that you get to choose, which is very, very nice. You do have a lot of cards that basically just returns the opponent's front row rearguards to the hand, but it's just a matter of if it is costing you resource or not, be it Counter Blast or a Soul Blast. But since this card is only targeting one front row rearguards, I guess it's pretty okay that she is on place as well as she's free. Not that bad. The second skill is where this card kind of shines a lot, because this card is able to either power up Siana when she's attacking or she's being attacked. What this means is that the 10k power is kind of both power and a shield in a sense. And what's more, since you are able to give Siana the 10k power when she's attacked, you are able to kind of bypass any guard restriction matchup, be it the opponent's battle door or anything that basically restricts you from using cards in your hand to guard. Yeah, all of this cards basically bypasses that. It's not much, but still, it is basically a 5k shield that is a 10k shield in a sense. And she does provide Siana with soul. Not that bad of a support, I think. Could be better, but not that bad. Next, we have Raffish Runner Juno. Active rearguard circle once per turn. If you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Siana in its card name, cost Soul Blast 1, choose one of your opponent's front row rearguards and you may return it to hand. If a trigger unit was Soul Blast for this cost, choose one of your Vanguard and that unit and this unit gets 10k power until the end of turn. So this is possibly one of the more important support cards that Siana could have. She's a really good support card in terms of both cost as well as her skill. She's able to convert any triggers that was put into soul into power for both Vanguard as well as herself. Is quite scary, to be honest. Effectively making her at 20k power as well as, you know, providing the 10k to Siana is something very disgusting. Imagine two of these cards in the front row. Disgusting. Last but not least is Jack O Parody Teletheus. Although when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, choose one of your opponent's front row rearguards and you may return it to hand. Second skill, auto rearguard circle. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, if you have a Vanguard with Siana in its card name, cost Counter Blast 1 and this unit gets 5k power until the end of the battle for each of your opponent's open front row rearguard circle if it was 10k power or more, and draw a card. This of course has the same optional return to hand skill. It's not really that surprising anymore since every single card that we talked about currently has the return to hand, but some of them are optional and some of them are mandatory. I think those that has a cost that returns to hand is mandatory, but those that do not have any cost to return the opponent's rearguard to hand is optional. So think of it this way, I would say. This card does provide hand resources if the opponent is of course empty, and she does gains power, which effectively make her a 20k attacker as well as drawing you a card, which is very, very nice. And since the whole Rideline doesn't really use any counter blast, most of your counter blast is going to be given to her, I would say, because there's not really a lot of counter blast. She's going to be the main attacker of this deck. her alongside the double R. Yeah, these two are going to be very disgusting in this deck. And that is all for this video. Do let me know down in the comment section of what do you think of the whole Gorgon Ice Rideline. For me, I think this is a very interesting design. To receive a boss unit that is really passive is just refreshing. Do like and subscribe if you like this video, and of course ring the bell notification icon so that you don't miss a video I upload. With that being said, I'll see you all on the field.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go.